Listen well, for this story begins in danger. Rain struck the stone walls of the great estate, and thunder rolled like warning drums. Deep inside, the Mafia boss sat with his trusted men, their voices low, sharp, and cruel. They spoke of betrayal, of missing gold, and of a man who knew too much. Before sunrise, they said, that man would die. The plan was clear. The place was chosen. The blood was already counted. Behind a thin wooden wall, a black maid stood frozen. She had been sent to clean, nothing more. Her hands shook as every word reached her ears. If she moved, she would be seen. If she breathed too loud, she would be heard. She was poor, unseen, and powerless in their eyes. Yet she now carried a secret heavier than gold. The boss laughed softly. He believed himself untouchable. He believed fear ruled all hearts. The maid pressed her back to the wall, heart beating like a trapped bird. She knew the man they planned to kill. He was not innocent, but he did not deserve death by lies. Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, fate shifted. The maid understood one truth then: by dawn, someone would fall. It could be the planned victim, or it could be the man who ordered death so easily. Her choice would decide everything. Before this night, the maid lived a quiet life of shadows. She rose before the sun and slept long after it set. Her name was never called with kindness. Orders came sharp, like thrown stones. Still, she worked with care, because dignity was the only thing no one could steal from her. She had seen much inside those walls. She had wiped blood from floors and tears from her own eyes. She had learned that power often feeds on silence. Many times, she told herself survival meant saying nothing, seeing nothing, remembering nothing. That rule had kept her alive. Now that rule burned her chest like fire. If she stayed silent, an innocent man would die screaming in the dark. If she spoke, she would likely die too. Fear argued loudly in her mind. It reminded her of hunger, of beatings, of bodies never found. Yet another voice spoke softer but stronger. It asked how she would live with herself if she walked away. She remembered her mother's words long ago: a quiet heart can still be brave. The maid sat alone in the servants' room as dawn crept closer. Her hands stopped shaking. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. Silence had protected her before, but tonight, silence would become her enemy. She stood, wrapped her shawl tight, and stepped into the night with purpose forming like steel inside her. At the edge of the estate flowed an old river, dark and patient. People said it remembered every secret ever whispered near it. By that river lived an elderly woman, bent with age, sharp with wisdom. Many feared her truth more than curses. The maid found her there, feeding the water with small white stones. Without being asked, the old woman spoke. "You carry fear that does not belong to you alone," she said. The maid told her everything. The murder plan. The boss. The ticking time of dawn. When she finished, her voice broke, but her eyes stayed steady. The elder nodded slowly. "Stopping evil with force creates more evil," she said. "But truth, when fed to greed, becomes poison." The maid asked what she must do. She expected spells or weapons. The elder gave none. Instead, she said, "Let his hunger destroy him. Move nothing with anger. Touch nothing with hate. Place truth where pride will find it." She warned the maid of pain, of risk, of loneliness. Courage, she said, was not loud. It was patient. As the maid walked back, the river reflected lightning like broken chains. She felt no joy, only calm resolve. The plan was simple but dangerous. The boss believed himself feared by all. Tonight, she would let him fear himself. Morning came heavy and slow. The maid returned to her duties, her face calm, her steps careful. She cleaned the great hall where secrets often fell like dust. As she worked, she listened. Power always talks too much. She learned where records were kept and where keys were hidden. At the right moment, she moved a document, not far, just enough to be found by the wrong eyes. Later, she repeated a sentence she had overheard, softly, to a guard known for jealousy. She spoke as if worried, not certain. Seeds were planted, small and quiet. By afternoon, tension spread. Men watched one another too closely. Whispers replaced laughter. The boss felt it first. He paced, anger rising. Something was wrong, and he hated not knowing what. The maid never rushed. She served food. She cleaned glasses. She kept her eyes lowered. Inside, her heart raced, but her hands stayed steady. That night, the boss ordered extra guards. He trusted no one fully now. Greed twisted into suspicion. The house felt colder, sharper. As the maid lay down, she knew the trap had begun to close. She had done little, yet everything had shifted. Tomorrow, blood might still fall. But now, it would not fall quietly. The boss had started a war inside his own walls, and he did not yet see the enemy wore no weapon at all. The next day, the boss entered his treasure chamber alone. He counted his wealth again and again. Something was missing. Not much, but enough to hurt his pride. Rage burned his thoughts. No outsider could enter that room. Betrayal had grown from inside. He summoned his men. Accusations flew like knives. Old friendships cracked. Loyal servants were beaten for answers they did not have. Fear spread faster than truth ever could. The maid watched from a distance, pain tightening her chest. Innocent people suffered, and doubt pressed on her spirit. She remembered the elder's warning. This was the cost of courage. Still, she did not stop. That evening, the boss delayed the planned murder. His hunger for control had changed his path. Finding the traitor mattered more now than killing the other man. This delay saved a life, at least for the night. The maid returned briefly to the river. The elder listened and said, "Do not turn back now. The beast is wounded. It will strike wildly." As darkness fell, the estate felt like a trapped animal. The maid knew the truth was close to the surface. One wrong step could expose her. One right step could finish everything. She returned inside, silent and steady, carrying nothing but patience. The boss had chosen suspicion over reason. That choice would soon consume him fully. Under torchlight, the boss made his move. He accused one of his oldest allies, a man who had fought beside him for years. The charge was theft and betrayal. No proof was given, only the boss's word. The accused denied everything. His voice shook, but his eyes held truth. It did not matter. Fear ruled louder than facts. The man was dragged away as a lesson to all. The boss felt victorious. Order, he believed, was restored through cruelty. He stood tall, convinced his power was unbroken. The others bowed, hiding their thoughts. The maid watched, heart heavy. This was the moment many stories end, with evil celebrating early. She knew better. Greed never rests. Late that night, the boss received a message. Documents had appeared in a place only he could access. They showed past murders, hidden deals, stolen fortunes. Each page pointed back to him. His hands trembled. These secrets were buried deep. Only fate, or a traitor he could not see, could expose them. He ordered the maid brought to him. Suspicion finally found her shadow. As guards moved, the maid breathed slowly. Fear returned, sharp and cold, but she did not run. She had walked too far for that. Outside, thunder returned, and the walls seemed to listen. The true judgment was about to begin. The boss stared at the papers, sweat shining on his brow. His men gathered, reading in silence. Each page carried truth like fire. Murmurs turned to anger. Loyalty cracked at last. The maid stood quietly nearby, unseen as always. She did not smile. She did not speak. Truth did the work for her. The boss shouted denials. He blamed enemies, ghosts, anyone but himself. Yet his voice lacked power now. Fear had changed sides. One man stepped forward, then another. Stories spilled out, matching the pages. The past rose like a flood. The boss backed away, cornered by his own history. In that chaos, the maid remained still. Her courage was not loud. It was patient to the end. The boss turned to her suddenly. "You," he said, pointing. "You did this." She met his eyes for the first time. Calmly, she answered, "Evil reveals itself when watched long enough." Before he could strike her, his men moved. weapons lowered toward him instead. The plan he once whispered now echoed back at him, reshaped by truth. Outside, dawn began to break. Light touched the windows, exposing every corner. The boss understood then. Power built on fear always collapses inward. He had taught them cruelty. Now, it returned. The maid stepped back into shadow as judgment closed in. The estate erupted with shouting and confusion. Guards turned on guards. Doors slammed. Fear ran free. At the center stood the boss, stripped of command, surrounded by men he once ruled. He reached for threats, for promises, for old favors. None worked. Truth had hardened their hearts. The maid watched as he was bound. No blood was spilled, yet his defeat felt complete. The murder he planned never happened. The innocent man lived, freed by a delay born of greed. As the boss was taken away, he looked once more at the maid. His eyes searched for hatred, for triumph. He found neither. Only quiet resolve. She slipped away while attention stayed on him. No one stopped her. Power had already forgotten the powerless. She walked to the river at sunrise. The elder waited, smiling softly. "It is done," the maid said. The elder nodded. "You did not fight him. You let him fight himself." The maid felt tears then, heavy but clean. She had lost her place in the estate, but she had gained something greater. Freedom tasted like morning air. Behind them, the estate stood silent, empty of its former terror. The river flowed on, carrying secrets away. The maid turned toward a new path, her steps light. Justice had spoken without shouting. Courage had whispered, and the world had listened. News spread beyond the walls. The mighty had fallen. His name became a warning, not a threat. Those he harmed began to breathe again. The innocent man returned home, alive because one voice refused silence. He never knew her name, but his prayers found her all the same. The maid traveled far, working honestly, sleeping peacefully. No nightmares followed her now. She had faced fear and lived. Sometimes, she returned to the river. The elder taught her that courage grows when shared. She listened, learned, and healed. People asked how one small act could break a powerful man. The elder would answer, "Greed sharpens the knife that cuts its owner." The maid never claimed credit. Her reward was quiet nights and an unburdened heart. In time, the story became a tale told by elders, like me, to remind the young. Power without justice eats itself. Silence can protect, but courage can save many. The maid's life proved that even the unseen shape destiny. Fate does not always roar. Sometimes, it whispers through those brave enough to listen. Remember this well. When evil plans in darkness, light does not always arrive with swords. Sometimes, it comes wearing humility, patience, and truth. So ends this tale, but its lesson walks on. The maid never sought greatness. She chose conscience over comfort, truth over safety. That choice sealed a fate far larger than her own. The boss believed fear made him strong. He forgot that fear also breeds betrayal. His downfall was not magic, nor violence, but the slow return of every wrong he buried. Justice arrived as it often does, quietly and complete. No song announced it. No crown rewarded it. Yet its mark remained. If you listen closely, you will hear this story wherever power grows careless. In every palace, every stronghold, every place where silence is demanded. Ask yourself this: if you heard evil planning in the dark, what would you do? Hide or act? The maid answered with patience, courage, and truth. That was enough. Let this story remind you that no voice is too small. No choice is too quiet. Fate listens closely to those who stand firm when fear demands silence. Carry this lesson with you. One brave heart can shift the world. And justice, though slow, never forgets its way home.